I am extraordinarily thrilled about this interview today because many of you don't know that I am interviewing the Honorable Susan Greenhawt, and it is a real treat for me because Judge Greenhawt and I have known each other for 32 years, which is remarkable in and of itself because just yesterday I felt was the first day of law school, which is where she and I met in 1990 at Nova Southeastern University Law School. And so it is really an honor for me to be able to do this interview. So I'd like to introduce Susan Greenhawt, the Honorable Susan Greenhawt, this morning. And I would just like to jump in and start with a little background for those of you who don't know a lot about you or don't know your background or don't know your history. So why don't you start with telling everybody where you're from and where you grew up?
Those 32 years went very fast, didn't it? It seemed like it was yesterday.
They went extremely fast. It's scarily so.
Yeah. And you were young and I was much younger.
That's correct. And I was much less grayer.
But you still did have gray hair 32 years ago.
I still had gray hair 32 years ago.
So having said all of that, I'm from Coral Gables. I grew up in Florida. I was born in Chicago, but I lived there 6 weeks, so I don't really count that. I lived in Coral Gables for most of my life, my childhood kind of life. And then once I went to college, I came back and I lived in Broward County as opposed to Miami-Dade.
What was it like growing up in Miami, in particular Coral Gables, in the certainly, I guess you're when you were super young as a child in the 60s and 70s? I mean, what was that like back then?
Well, I hate to tell you, but it was really the 50s and 60s, but it was a much different place in the 50s and 60s. It was very, compared to today, it was a much more sleepy town, a quiet town, especially Coral Gables. And, but it was a lot of fun. I always was able to, you could go out, you could ride your bike. It was a different town than what you see on the news today. And, I really enjoyed it. My sister and I had a lot of friends and we would go to Key Biscayne. We would go, all over town in our teenage years and have a big time. I graduated from Coral Gables Senior High School and, it was a very nice life. And maybe teenagers today view it the same way, living in Coral Gables. They don't know anything different, but it was a lot of fun.
What were your parents like?
Well, my mother was a very serious business kind of woman. She loved the stock market. She loved buying and selling real estate. My father, another story. Although he went to work every day, he was definitely an alcoholic. And, when times were good, he was very funny and very congenial kind of guy. But that mood would turn on a dime when anyone said anything he didn't like, which a life with him pretty much prepared me for the chaos that I must have gravitated towards since then. I find that the judges in the family court that like it the best are those who maybe came from a little more chaotic early childhood, as opposed to those who came from a very, Leave It to Beaver with June and Ward as parents. So, at the time, I didn't really think that it was a strange family because, all you know is your own family. But however, right. Seeing thousands, I've got to say thousands of families since then, I think that it gave me an understanding and empathy and a compassion that I would not have had, and an understanding about human nature. People right. Sometimes get on the bench and they portray a persona that life is perfect and behavior is perfect. Come on now, we're all still humans, and there still is a lot of room for improvement, probably in almost everybody's behavior, and to not be able to understand human nature is sometimes a detriment, especially in family court.
Where did you go to college after you graduated from Coral Gables High School?
Then I went to Vanderbilt and I became in Tennessee and I became a nurse.
So,
And
so let me just stop you there because your professional experience is certainly a little different than most. Most people, I think, go to undergraduate and then go right into law school and begin their legal career in their 20s. And you took a different path. And so tell us about that.
well, I think the path I took was more a path of that time. When I grew up, and segueing into the topic, the month we're celebrating, women, or at least in my family or my experience, were asked, do you want to, if you want to go to college, do you want to be a school teacher or would you prefer to be a nurse? And I really was not looking for a life of, 10-year-olds or whatever age I would have to teach if I was a school teacher. So, and I'd been a candy striper. For those of you who may not know, candy striper is like a volunteer, teenager volunteer at the hospital. So I'd been a candy striper and I said, okay, I'll be a nurse. So I went to Vanderbilt and I went to a 4-year nursing program. And when I came back, so it wasn't really, do you want to be a doctor or do you want to be a lawyer? Those weren't the choices that were presented in the 50s and 60s. And maybe I was on the cusp because by the time your generation, or even people 5 years younger, 10 years younger than me, then it was a whole different world. By the time I became a nurse and I was, working in my first job, wouldn't you know, I love chaos. So I had a job in the emergency room at Jackson Memorial and very well suited for me. But I also, in my mind, knew that that was not a job you could do at 40, 50, 60. I mean, it's age limited as your body, can't take 12 hours on your feet, 8 hours on your feet. So I don't know. I think it was a subliminal message that made me, whatever that means, from society as a whole. Society was shifting from that you only saw women as nurses or nurses' aides to then you would see a lot of women physicians. Same in the law field. It wasn't that women were just assistants in a law firm. You would see women were lawyers. And that I don't know. I guess we could do the research what year that turn took place, but it certainly took place during my youngish years, my 20s and 30s.
So how long were you a nurse before you decided to go to law school, and what made you make that decision?
Well, that was a less conscious decision, I have to say. I was a nurse for many years. Maybe, let's see, I graduated from nursing school from Vanderbilt in 1974, and I started law school in 1990. And so during that period of time, I worked many years as a nurse in the emergency room, first at Jackson Memorial in Miami, then in Broward at Hollywood Memorial. And I took time off I got married, I had children, all of that. And then I don't know, I just realized that nursing was not going to last long term for me. And by that time I was already into my 30s, and I really didn't think that I could go to medical school and be in those days it was very different in medical school. You had to do 24 hours on and maybe 12 hours off. It was not at all a 9 to 6 kind of job. And so I had children. I didn't think that would work for me. And I don't know how I really, it wasn't that I know, it's coming back to me now. I went to a New Year's Eve party one night and there was a woman there that was a professor at the law school at Nova. And we were just talking, we didn't know each other well. And she told me, we were talking what we were going to do. And she told me, oh, you know what, I'm thinking this year, I want to try to go on Jeopardy. And I said, oh, I don't know what I want to try to do this year. And she said, why don't you go to law school? Marilyn Kane is who this
Marilyn
was.
Kane, that's right.
And I said, oh, maybe that's a good idea. So I don't know if she ever went on Jeopardy, but I applied to law school. And I applied only, I'm not sure if I applied to Miami. I think that was in my mind too far because I lived in Hollywood. So I only applied to Nova. St. Thomas wasn't really, it was just getting started, and all these other law schools, FIU, FAU, wherever else, Barry, wherever else there's a law school now, they didn't have it in those days. So it was going to be Nova or nothing. And I applied. And, I didn't wait by the mailbox every day. There no email in those days, or at least not for acceptance to law school. So I went about my life. Unfortunately, my father, by that point, his drinking had caught up with him, and he was on the last days of his life. So that really took a lot of my attention. And then one day I got my acceptance, and I said, oh, I got to now decide. And I said, okay. And then my father passed away in June. Law school started in August. And there I was. And as you know, the rest, we met on the first day. And
so we were in the same section. I think it was section E of 1990 at Nova Southeastern University. And you were sitting in the first row, in the first seat. And I think that I was sitting in the last row, in the last seat, which sort of goes along with our personalities. And I then realized that you were exceptionally brilliant. And I said, I got to go sit next to her, because I'm going to need all the help I can get to get through this. And so I moved from the last row, the last seat, to the first row, the second seat, so that I could sit next to you, so that we would, and ultimately we became, of course, friends and studied for all of our exams together. And I love to tell everybody that no matter what exam it was, doesn't matter. There was only 2 classes that I got a better grade, but every other class, Judge Greenhawt would get an A, and I would get a B+ or an A- or a B, no matter what class. The only classes that I finally got the A, or they called it back then the book award, and she got the B, was pretrial advocacy and trial advocacy. And those were my only claim to fame in law school, when I would be with you in every single other class. So, but I want to talk about a couple issues that a lot of people don't know, which is the tremendous adversity that you have also overcome in your life, in terms of first semester law school, 1990 December, you feel a lump in your throat. And what happens?
So much of this, it isn't that I forget it. It's just that I work past it. I'm a human being that moves past whatever adversity comes to me. So in my first year of law school, I determined that, it was discovered I had thyroid cancer. So it really didn't occur to me to say, okay, I'm going to quit school. It's just, how can I get the surgery done during the Christmas break and be ready to come back in the fall, in the, what is it called, winter semester, spring, whatever it starts in January.
Right.
They call it some places spring, some places winter. So I had the surgery, all was relatively well. I came back in the second semester. And I think they let me take maybe one or two classes less, so that I could continue to recover. And then I went to summer school that summer and made up the classes that I didn't take and got back on track. And so,
well, but it's not just that. It's you were about 38 years old. You had 2 youngish children. You get diagnosed with thyroid cancer. You had just gotten divorced. And I, for me, I was sort of in awe, watching you just say, well, I'm going to get my surgery during the Christmas break, and which is what you did, and then come back in the spring, which is what you did. And it was just sort of a moment for me, watching somebody go through that and continuing to persevere, as opposed to say, well, I'm going to take off the semester, or I'm going to take off the year, or, nothing keeps you down, which has really been sort of my respect and all that I have had for you for the last 32 years, because no matter what hits you in the face, you continue to just get up and keep moving forward. And maybe that is being a product of where you came from as a child and dealing with the issues that you dealt with your father. I mean, maybe that's what made you so tough. I don't know.
No,
But it's
it is
certainly
true.
something that's memorable.
Right. It is true that I'm fortunate enough to have been born with a great deal of internal strength. My mother was a very strong woman, very small woman, shocking for those of you who have seen me, stand up in person. I'm 5'11". My mother was maybe 5'2", weighed maybe 110 pounds, very small woman.
Your father was a six something.
Sure. I get my father was Swedish, and I have that Scandinavian build. But my mother was an incredibly strong woman. And I don't know, I never grew up with a choice. It never was a choice whether or not you're going to be strong. And I think that my children grew up. Although I have to say, very few people are tough and strong like I am. But in terms of having strength and having the ability to persevere hard times, they both develop that as well. So maybe it is an environmental thing. If you grow up with people that get a headache and go to bed for a week, then maybe you're that person. And if you grow up with someone that pushes through things, then you become that person.
So you're in law school, you're back, although you did have several recurrences of your thyroid cancer, you had several recurrences of metastatic cancer, which meant it was sort of spreading. And so also throughout the rest of your law school years, you've had to keep going back and getting radiation, right?
Yes, the kind of radiation they give you for thyroid cancer is not like the machine radiation. It's a chemical radiation in the form of, like a pill or a liquid. But nonetheless, it's something you have to keep following up. And,
Right.
Apparently it doesn't kill you, because then I was in my 30s and now many, many years have passed and I'm still here. So I guess it wasn't deadly.
Well, thank God for that. So let's talk a little bit about the transition from law school to how the decision was made really by you, because for all of you who don't know this either, Judge Greenhawt and I became law partners right after we graduated from law school. We opened up a law firm in 1993 in Fort Lauderdale. And so why don't you tell the folks how that evolved?
Well, I think that, looking back from where I sit now, many years later, obviously it was my nature to like to be in the helping profession. I'd been a nurse and I enjoyed that, even though it's physically taxing and probably wouldn't have been a career for me for a lifetime. I like the idea of family law. I guess I like the idea of helping people. I like the idea of, trying to give people guidance at a time in their life when they need it. So during law school, I clerked with Cynthia Green and Marcia Elser in their firm in Miami one summer, and learned
which was the top, certainly all-woman firm in Miami at that time.
Right. And, they've both retired by this point, but, I learned a lot. Family law is a discrete area of law. So it isn't overwhelming. It's, I don't know, not like you want to learn everything about civil litigation with many facets. So, I wanted, I wanted to go into that kind of field. So we started a firm. And obviously, if you know Chorowski and Clary today, which is an offshoot of Chorowski and Greenhawt, obviously it was successful. In 2000.
Well, let me just interrupt, because what I think is really amazing, and I think we were completely insane, but we were young. And so maybe when you're young, you don't have any fears that you have as you age. Was when I tell people that, oh yeah, Judge Greenhawt and I graduated law school and we opened up a law firm in Fort Lauderdale. I tell folks that and they go, wait, what? How? Like, how did you even know what to do? Now, I do believe we were fortunate that we had mentors that were very helpful to us, such as Cynthia Green and Marcia Elser and Karen Amlong. that sort of held our hand whenever we needed help from them. But still, the words that ring in my ear when you approached me and you said, listen, and you said it just the way you still talk today. Listen, I'm not going to go work for a law firm. I'm 40 years old. I think you were about 40 when you graduated. I'm 40 years old. I'm too old to be anybody's associate. I was a nurse for 15, 16 years. I built my husband's medical practice. I know how to run an office. And so let's become law partners. And I know that if we build it, they will come. And you were right. And so terrified as I was, I said, all right, let's do it. And you were correct, as you usually are, which is we built it and they came, and it was wonderful for us to be law partners for the 10 years that we were, before you decided to go on to your next venture, which is something really interesting about you. You know, most of us go to college, we pick a career and we stick with that career for the next, 50 years or whatever length of time. That's not you. You need to move. Like I say to my friends, every 10 years, she's got to make a move. You were a nurse in the ER for 10 years. Then you ran your husband's medical practice for 10 years. Then you went to law school and you practiced law for 10 years. And then that was boring. And now you needed to move on to something else. So what is the impetus? What causes this fire in your belly to now, at that time, certainly, to move into becoming a judge?
Well, I don't know. You are right about me that is, I don't know, maybe it's Spilkus. But after I do something for a period of time, I want to move on and do something else. And as strange as this is, and I was telling one of the new judges that I'm mentoring now this the other day, and she's much younger. She's in her 40s. And I'm sure she was laughing hysterically, but it was on the phone, so I couldn't see. I'm thinking of what I'm going to do next. And I mean, imagine this, that at this stage, and we were talking about practicing eminent domain law, since she had done that in her past career. And it sounded a little interesting. So I'm saying to myself, and I realize this is ridiculous at this stage, oh, maybe that would be something I would like to do. But, half of me realizes there is not another career in Susan Greenhawt's future. And the other half of me really thinks maybe there is something next, other than just being retired. And, okay, so I've retired in 2012 from the bench, but I've been back. This is my third time back as a senior judge in the family division. And this time I've been here almost 2 years because of COVID. And I'll always come back as long as I have my memory and my faculties. I'll always come back when the family division needs help. But I'm not going to be a person to just sit in my house. But other than being retired, and once COVID is to the point that I feel I could travel, those things, sure, that goes without saying. But a little part of me still thinks, as stupid as it sounds, that there could be something next.
Well, and you never know with you. I'll never underestimate you. But let's talk about your transition to becoming a judge. Why did you feel that was the next step that you needed to make for you?
Well, and it wasn't something that, once again, I'm not a person apparently that ruminates for years and has this burning desire to be a judge. I guess we had discussed it. We talked about it minimally, not overly. And I said, maybe that would be something that I would enjoy as a next step, after practicing law for 10 years. And so I applied, and I said in January of whatever year, I guess 2003, I said, so it must've been in the holiday season of 2002. We discussed it, and I said, okay, starting the first of the year, the next opening, I'll apply. And we weren't really, when I say we weren't really ready in terms of having, thought this through about the firm, about the, how this was going to be able to be done. And so there was an opening right away after the first of the year, and I applied, and with, whatever it took, I was appointed that first time. And
you were appointed by Governor Jeb
Jeb
Bush.
Bush, yes, by Governor Jeb Bush. And, I was happy, I was thrilled, but I didn't know all the angst that many people go through applying 10 times, however many times that they had to apply and going through whatever they went through, because I just filled the application, made a few phone calls, did what I could do, and the rest just came easily. Maybe when it's meant to be, it comes easily. I don't know.
Well, I've always nicknamed you Teflon because it's, nothing seems to stick to you and everything you do comes so easily for you. You decided one night at a party to go to law school. So you applied, you took the LSAT, you got into the law school you wanted to go to. You decided to open a firm because that's what you wanted to do, and you built a successful firm. You wanted to become a judge, you applied, you became a judge. I mean, you really do have the touch, it appears, to have built really a beautiful career. Were there ever any obstacles that you had to overcome because you were a woman in the 50s, 60s in any of your careers? Did you ever feel that?
I haven't felt it in the older years. I think that older women are treated with more respect than younger women. And I think that society has changed. Definitely, when it was the 60s, which was the time to decide my career, or at least decide where to go to college, what to study. In those days, women did, as I said, did not consider, or at least most women, I'd have to say, didn't consider the same broad scope of careers that they do today. But having said that, once I did go to law school, by the time I went to law school at, I guess, from 37 years old to 40 years old, there were many women in our class. There were maybe it was 50-50 by that time. But had I gone to law school right out of college, I'm sure I would have been in the minority. So right. Yes, but it impacted more my mindset of what was possible. And early on in the 60s, I didn't realize that it was possible. But once I realized that it was possible, nothing, I didn't accept that anything would stop me or that being a woman would stop me. So I didn't really encounter adversity in that way.
Right. And then once you became a judge, and you spent your career as a judge in the family division, correct?
Yes, correct.
And in that division, you served in various roles. My recollection is you were the chair of the family division, and then you also were the administrative judge of the Unified Family Court. Is that my memory correct?
You know what? Renee Goldenberg was the chair and I was the administrative judge. Yes.
Right. And then you also, for a period of time, handled not only your division, but you handled the dependency division at that time, because the dependency division was certainly not in the wonderful place that it is today. Obviously, thanks to Hope Bristol. And so you stepped into that role as well and assisted wherever you could. I mean, it just seems that you were always very hands-on as a judge.
Yes, and I mean, in today, I still, rotate through as a senior judge. I rotate through all of the divisions. I work where there's like right now, I'm working in Division 33, waiting for the governor's appointment of the new judge for that division. And assuming that Judge Tudor still is planning to put the new judge in that division. But that's a frequent starting point. And that's how it is that I mentor all of these new judges. And I think since I've been back, just since COVID, there have been 6 new judges. Maybe this will be number 6.
Yeah, well, talk to us. Yeah, I think you're right. I joke with my colleagues, my generation, and I tell the younger generation, hey guys, the days of the Greenhawts and the Goldenbergs and the Birkins and Horowitz, and even Lopane was there for a long time. Those days are gone. And we are really going to have much more of a rotating bench, family bench in Broward, like they do in other circuits, obviously, because, we have yet to really see a judge want to stay long-term in this division for whatever the reasons may be. I mean, people like to move on and try other divisions and rotate, but but I think that that is something we're going to be experiencing. So I know that you've taken this role on as a mentor for these new and younger judges. How has that been for you?
Um, it's it's a lot of work because it's a 24-hour a day job. You know, when you mentor someone, they need your help when they need your help. As a senior judge, you work, I mean, now I'm working every day because I'm covering a full division, but in other times when I'm working as a senior judge, maybe I only work 3 days a week. But that doesn't mean that the new judges don't have questions 5 days a week, 7 days, really 7 days a week. So, you know, and I let everybody you know, set their own boundaries, so to speak, as to how much help they want. Some people want to call me, you know, multiple times a day and ask me questions. Other people don't call at all. I do see it does divide along gender lines. The females, for some reason, reach out more to me. Maybe it's more of a connection, and the males are more reserved. Like, you know, they may text me occasionally or email me occasionally, but the newer female judges will mostly call every day in the beginning.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, it's just interesting that even today there are some significant gender differences with women judges versus male judges reaching out to a mentor to ask for help. So are you enjoying mentoring these younger judges, whether they be men or women, of course?
Yes, I mean, it's always, you know, so once you do family law for a certain number of years, just like I'm sure you're a mentor to the new family lawyers or newer family lawyers, since you've done this a long period of time. And with that, you can't, if you stay in the field, you can't help but to become a so-called expert, because if you can't, after 30, however many years, if you don't know this area of the law inside and out, and you stay there, there's something wrong with you. But, you know, so just by you know, merely by the length of time and the amount of experience based on that length of time I have, it's easy for me to help them, just because all of these questions they have been things that have come across my docket in the past. And so it's not hard for me to help them. The only thing that I always am cautious of is that I want them to be who they are. I don't want them to be who I am. And just because I see things in a certain way, I help them to develop their ruling or their order based on what they think, not based on what I think. I mean, if they're totally off base, and that doesn't really happen, but if they were, I would tell them. But you know, I don't say, I think that this relocation should be granted or this relocation should be denied. I find out what they think, and then I help them from that point.
So what message, what's your message? Let me ask it that way. What is your message to young women out there, women lawyers that have aspirations, whether it's to become a lawyer or to become a judge? What advice would you give them?
I would definitely tell them to keep trying and keep moving forward. I mean, really in life, it's a matter of putting one foot in front of the other. I mean, maybe half of it is I'm strong, but the other half of it is no matter what happens, I get up and I keep putting one foot in front of the other. I mean, if you lie down and say, I can't do it, this isn't working out, woe is me. No, you have to get up every day and just keep moving forward. And that's how you reach your goal.
So I want to ask sort of a fun question that we've been asking several of the recipients, which is, if you were able to walk into a time machine and go back in time, who would be the person you would want to break bread with, and why?
Let me tell you, I historically don't look back. So this wasn't an easy question when I first saw it. I had to think for a while, you know, maybe in a number of hours even about this. And then it came to me. And, you know, I guess it was hard because of the not looking back way about me. And then I remembered Luther Vandross, and I would hope he would be in the mood to sing that night. And I know you laugh because everyone that knows me, that whenever there's going to be music, and is it, they always ask, and is it going to be Luther again? You know, and I tell them, especially my kids at the holiday, of course it's going to be Luther. I mean, maybe we'll hear something else, but of course, without a doubt, Luther.
Well, that's really perfect, and it's certainly a perfect way to end, because I went to many Luther Vandross concerts with you back in the I guess it was in the 90s, and so
and you know, if you come to my house, we're gonna
Luther Vandross will be playing.
We're gonna hear Luther.
We're gonna hear Luther. I have a feeling that there is no other recipient, not a single one, that their answer to this question is going to at all be anything close to breaking bread with Luther Vandross or anybody like that.
Well, when you ask me, I'm going to tell you.
And I just want to end on this note, because again, you face adversity head on, and you always come through on the other side. In 2019, you did have a kidney transplant, for a lot of people who don't know. And the beautiful part of that story is that your non-biological daughter, your stepdaughter, who you raised from the time that she was an infant, was a perfect match. And that's really quite a beautiful way, and a beautiful gift that a child can give to her parent. How is your health? How is your daughter's health?
Well, we're both fine. You know, it's never a thing, you know, a kidney transplant isn't a cure for kidney disease. It's a treatment. And so it's not that you get a transplant and then life goes on unchanged. Of course, you know, it's a lot of monitoring this and that, but I'm fine. Rachel is fine. And you know, you're right. It was a beautiful gift, and it was also a beautiful gift that you were willing to give me as well. And you know, unfortunately, our blood types aren't the same, although that nowadays doesn't change it. In fact, Judge Ali texted me that today is, I don't know if it's National Kidney Donor, it's something about Kidney Donor Day or week, and she was just, you know, wishing me well. But it is due to the living donor situation. It's been much better for people with kidney disease. COVID was not so good because of the immunosuppressants that you have to take once you get the transplant. You're at much higher risk of severe disease if you catch COVID, and the vaccine doesn't really work on many people, including myself. But you know, every day there's great forward strides, so all is well.
Well, I'm, you know, when Braulio, when we were picking the recipients for this year's awards, and you were chosen as one of the recipients, immediately I said, well, I'm going to interview her, because she's been my best friend for 32 years, and there's a lot of wonderful history there that it would mean so much for me to be able to do it, and it has. And so I love you from the bottom of my heart, and you are so deserving of this award, because you are an extraordinary woman leader in our community. And I thank you for everything you did for me, and everything you taught me, and everything you're teaching all the people that are coming up behind you.
Thank you, and I appreciate those kind words.